6'2" frame out of his small car after popping the hood. He propped it up, then leaned over the engine. He stared down at the hunk of metal as if he knew what he was doing, hoping he'd somehow magically see what was wrong. He knew nothing about cars, only that when he turned the key, the engine started, usually. He was staring down into the hunk of steel that was Marilyn's engine when a slight cough sounded behind him, causing him to whirl around and curse himself for being caught unawares. He knew better than to leave himself vulnerable, especially since the Inca Boyz had tried to kill Alexis and vowed vengeance against her and his family. The Inca Boyz were a gang from Denver who had gotten into the business of hiring themselves out as thugs online. The Anderson brothers had nearly put them out of business after working with the police to take them down. The leader of the gang, Donovan, had recently gotten out of jail, and all three of the brothers were on high alert, not knowing what the man would do, or if he'd try to get revenge on them for taking down his gang. Nathan looked in shock at the woman standing in front of him. The first thing he noticed was her height. She had to be almost a foot shorter than he was, and the top of her head came to his shoulder. She had colorful sleeves of tattoos on both arms, her lips were pulled up into a smirk, and her eyes danced with humor. Her black hair blew around her in the evening breeze, the strands looking alive as they swirled around her head. She had high cheekbones, a small nose, and full lips that Nathan suddenly wanted to see wrapped around his dick. He was shocked at the image that burst into his brain as if it were a memory instead of a fantasy. This woman on her knees in front of him, her tattoos bright against her pale skin, her lips wrapped around him as she took him deep into her mouth, her nipples peeking out between the curls of her black hair as she leaned into him. The vision was surprising. He'd lost his virginity in high school at prom, and the experience hadn't been great. His date had obviously faked her orgasm and looked unimpressed as he'd tried to make it good for her. He'd slept with a grand total of 2 more women in the last 10 years. He'd learned a bit about what women liked and how to please them from those experiences, but he'd found that it was easier to jack off than to try to woo and date women simply to get his rocks off. Nathan's 3 sexual encounters had left him feeling as if he were missing something. And now he finally knew what that something was. Passion. He felt it simply by looking at the petite woman in front of him. Her arms were crossed now, and her eyes had narrowed in irritation as she waited for him to say something. "My car won't start." As far as enticing opening lines, it sucked, but Nathan had never been good at flirting. "What did it sound like when you turned the key?" Her voice was husky, and Nathan imagined it would only get huskier after she'd had an orgasm, or 2. He cleared his throat and tried to think about things like fixed and current assets and the profit and loss statement for a security he was working on for the current quarter. But it was no use. His dick had gotten hard at the sound of her voice, and it didn't want to be denied. Nathan turned so he was facing the engine again, trying to spare the woman his inappropriate hard-on. "Not it. She. Marilyn's her name. She didn't do anything." "Men in their cars," the woman joked. Nathan turned his head to see her join him at the front of his car. She braced her hands on the edge of the hood and leaned over, the muscles in her upper arms flexing as she moved, making her tattoos jump enticingly. He wanted to spend hours examining them, piecing together what each one meant to her and why she'd wanted to get them inked on her body for all eternity. "I don't know why men think cars are female," she continued, thankfully oblivious to his thoughts. "Seems to me that they act much more like men. They do what they want no matter how well someone takes care of them, and in the end will always let you down when you need them the most."